I'm Debbie Rubenstein, and I'm happy to be here today with the Living Archives Project. COVID metrics for this week are there were an average of 24 cases reported in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, which is a 57% decrease over the last 2 weeks. So for the comfort of both of us, we are both comfortable not wearing a mask. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Judith Brown. I'm an African-American woman wearing tinted glasses. I have a multicolored head wrap on. I'm wearing a blue sweater that has my button for my nonprofit organization, Project 7 Forward, on it. And I'm wearing a white shirt with very bold pink and gold letters that say, "My sister's keeper."
That's right. Very sparkly and fabulous. And a great necklace, I may add.
Thank you. A family tree necklace.
You're welcome. So tell me, Judith, where is home for you right now?
Home is Greer Heights community on the east side of Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you been there long?
I've been on the east side since I moved here 13 years ago. And we've been in Greer Heights for about 6 years now.
Great. So you were there all through the pandemic?
All through the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Were you in the same place throughout?
Same place. Yeah. Same townhome.
That's great. That's great. And can you talk a little bit about what you remember of the early days of the pandemic?
So it's amazing that you asked that question because a lot of people have trouble remembering.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember the day that we were told you can't go outside anymore. So my husband and I, we do events around the city, community events, and it was suddenly like, well, cancel everything. And you really had no idea how long this was going to be. I had also just brought my sister down, who was a person with a disability, from Maryland. Mm-hmm. And at the time, she had been living in a long-term care facility. And something had said, go up and get her, bring her down, go up and get her, bring her down. And so everybody was like, well, just wait till after the spring. I never forgot. Someone said, wait till after the spring. And we went up and got her right before everything shut down. And right before a lot of those long-term care facilities were hit so hard.
Yeah.
So I always have that gut feeling that, oh my goodness, what if we hadn't gone and got her at that time?
Was COVID a part of the decision to go and get her, or was that?
No, it was just an urging in me to go get her before the spring.
Yeah, boy.
And so against all advice, which was, you're going up in the wintertime, different weather things, I said, let's go get her now. Let's go get her now. And then literally, it was like nobody moves, nobody goes anywhere.
Yeah.
No travel. Think about it. We literally shut everything down.
Yeah.
So those were my early days. And I think when we were doing our hand map, I talked about the shock.
Yeah.
And the fear. It was nothing but fear to say, oh, what does this mean? Mm-hmm. And how long is this going to go on?
Yeah. So did you move your sister in with you guys?
She did come in and move with us, yeah.
And do you know what happened in her long-term
long-term care facility? They lost 55 people.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Staff
gosh.
and residents. 55.
Oh my gosh.
And it was not even a very large facility.
Yeah.
But I think it caught everyone unaware.
Yeah.
And so what we take for granted now are, you go to any event, there's usually a couple of bottles of hand sanitizer and all sorts of things. Someone will offer you a mask. We weren't doing any of that. You got to think about it. We weren't doing any of that.
Yeah.
And so here was this silent thief coming in, taking lives that we had absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
So it was very scary.
It was very scary. Did you all talk about what was happening up there while she was with you?
We didn't find out right away the number of people that had passed. So no, we were just really concerned about us because 3 out of the 4 members of the family are people with disabilities. And so we were all more concerned about how do we stay with our multiple health or conditions? How do we stay safe?
What were some of the particular challenges you feel you faced because you were trying to navigate the pandemic with a disability?
My sister was a 3-time stroke survivor. My son has autism, but he also, in fact, was scheduled for sinus surgery, which they canceled. Right. So he literally could not get sick because when he got sick, it would linger and it would go on for a very long period of time. And I'm a person that just has, it's not autoimmune, but my autonomic nervous system doesn't always work very well.
Mhm.
So when I get sick, I linger for a very long period of time. So that was our concern. Like, we can't afford to be ill in any way, shape, or form. And then we were living in a nice little cozy townhome. If it got in, it was going to take, it was going to, everybody. It was going to take everybody. And so those early days where people were literally passing within 6 to 8 weeks,
Mhm.
the longest might have been 3 months. That was just like, do I even want to go outside? Yeah.
What did that mean for you with your work? Maybe you can talk a little about your work so folks will know.
I started Project 704 Forward in 2018, and we are for the support and advancement of people with disabilities. And I always talk about this. Up to the point of COVID, nobody knew kind of who we were and what we did. My phone began to ring literally maybe 60 days after that closing in March, because people were saying, well, you're working with the most vulnerable people. Do you still go out? And we had to scramble and figure out, how can we safely see people?
Yeah.
We made a promise that we would not bring people to us, we would go to them in their homes, in hospitals. Well, how do we do that in the middle of a pandemic? But my phone literally began to ring, and that's when I think we got the most exposure, because we figured out how to do this safely.
Who was calling?
So there were a bunch of different COVID access lines at that time, people trying to say, how do we coordinate care? How do we coordinate support, especially for those most vulnerable who shouldn't be leaving out of their homes? And so the calls came for that, like, somebody needs food.
Okay.
Also, we began to get calls from people saying, I want to go to the stores, but they only have hours set aside for seniors, but I'm a person with a health condition.
Right.
And so we had to start advocating. You should be allowed to come the same time as the seniors because you have health challenges. So then we saw the language begin to change, that anyone, not just someone 65 or older, but anyone who had a health challenge could shop certain times of the day. We had to work with people who were complaining about the limits. I don't think people remember there were limits on water.
Yeah.
And we had to, particularly had a young lady who called and said, I need a certain amount of water every day. I'm driving around to 5 stores to get each store's limit so that I can have water. And we tried to address that. You know, we couldn't get much budge room in the stores. So we actually did a fundraiser to raise money for people to donate water, bring her water. And we raised enough money that summer of 2020, we had water delivered to her for the entire summer.
Oh, wow.
And so that was something where she did not have to put herself in a vulnerable position in order to receive what she needed. So that kind of snowballed. Word of mouth was like, hey, this is a group out here. They're willing to go out into the streets. We were also doing census awareness, and elections were that year. And we were continually in the community, continually talking to people. Now, we use Zoom, trust me. We loved Zoom because that allowed us to do more. And for people with disabilities, this actually kind of leveled the playing field. Everyone was at home. Everyone's trying to stay safe. And so we saw the technology just take off for now more people with disabilities to be involved in the conversations.
You know, that makes me wonder, a lot of cultural institutions, big and small, scrambled to create cultural experiences online. Did you hear from people in your community, or did you personally find that you had more access to cultural experiences?
Not so much even cultural, but we had been begging our workforce development to create virtual job boards. And within 60 days, there was a virtual job fair. There was a whole entire list of companies that were working virtually. So we actually saw an increase in people working from home with disabilities. Where we suffer, it's that we've got a very low employment rate. So we actually saw those rates go higher for people who could now be part of the workforce, which is fantastic. And then also culturally, yes, I don't know how many concerts I did online, which I loved, because now, and this was what was wonderful, a lot of them were free. I didn't have to pay a $65 ticket to sit in on a symphony. I now had it in my living room.
Mm-hmm.
And so we even devised a way that we would do movie nights through Zoom, and we would share a movie and everyone would be on their different laptops or whatever, and we would discuss it afterwards.
Yeah.
So we found ways to connect.
Have you been able to continue any of those new ways of connecting?
We always have the rooms open if there's a support need,
Mm-hmm.
because that was another thing. Support groups stopped meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have a way to connect to virtual support rooms. Of course, telemed is big, so we try to help people make sure that they can access their medical records and have those televisits safely and understanding the technology. I'm also involved in digital equity, and that was a thing that we saw where our people with disabilities may not have had reliable broadband, and then did they have a device that was up to date and that could work. And so I'm working now in the community to close that gap as well.
You know, during the pandemic, I ended up diagnosed with my own disease, a rare disease like MS. I lost vision in my left eye. I haven't lost additional vision. I may or may not. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, in a way, it was a lucky time because the change in the medical rules meant that I could access doctors across the country,
Right.
for research and other things. But those rules are changing back now. And I wondered if you wanted to speak to any of that.
We're finding a lot of the advances are at this point being rolled back.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very troubling. Someone just called me about new support pet laws going into effect, which we all knew that if people had animals and pets in their home, it was so supportive during that time.
Mm-hmm.
That was even, at least you could go out and walk the dog,
Mm-hmm.
and those things that you could get out into some fresh air. So we see a lot of those pluses coming back. They're asking everyone, come back to the office. Well, sometimes, what I noticed was people are now more vocal about if they're part of that vulnerable society. Well, a lot
That's
of times we were trying to pass.
Yeah.
We were trying to just make it do. Now we have to self-advocate. And there's pushback against people who say, I'm safe in my home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a large population, but we do have some friends and clients who are not able to take the vaccine
Mm-hmm.
due to health issues.
Right.
Well, they're still extremely vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And finding employment that understands these positions and supports them is shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we are concerned about those things. I'm pushing for hybrid. Always have an online component.
Mm-hmm.
I myself, I self-identify as a person with multiple conditions and systems that don't work right. I call them, they get wonky every once in a while. And so I can have a schedule full of things, but then suddenly have to go virtual on almost everything. I need that to still be an option so that I can still participate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we're concerned about that. During the COVID we had here in Charlotte, that source of income discrimination was rolled out. Well, then we just saw Raleigh say, nope, we're taking that away. And that helped people in this vulnerable time of housing to be able to advocate for themselves. So there's a fight. There's a lot of fight ahead to just get out the voice of people who are still very vulnerable right now.
You talked a little about the vulnerability within your own household, but also how the commitment of the organization to going out and meeting with people. What did you do to continue your work but stay safe and keep the people you love safe?
Well, part of the hand map, we were working with so many organizations, and we started right here with Novant and Atrium. Both supplied us with boatloads of PPE.
Uh-huh.
So we were always safe. We had our hand sanitizer. We had face masks. And we could willingly go into a home and say, listen, if you need 50 disposable masks, here they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really helped us a great deal. We also had a lot of support out of Raleigh with groups that gave us printed information for free so that we were trying to educate and let people know this is what you need to be safe. I don't know if you remember, we used to even remember people were washing the groceries when they came home and how to bring that in safely. How do we bring people groceries without bringing in
Mm-hmm.
COVID? And so we would educate people on, listen, when we leave your bags, we're spraying them down. When you go in, put those gloves on. Make sure you wipe down everything.
Mhm.
We were handing out antibacterial wipes. I don't know if you remember the Lysol shortage.
Yeah.
And so we would find alternatives. This is what you can use. I never forgot, we picked up, I didn't even put them down. We had a brewery that gave us their alcohol in order to get some aloe vera, which was also in short supply, but to give that out as hand sanitizer. So we organized all these different groups that were saying, what can we do to help you still see people safely? Through information, through products, through the PPE supplies. And that emboldened us to say, listen, we're talking to the doctors out of the CDC. We're having webinars every week on how best to move. Where are the hot spots? All of that wealth of information allowed us to know what to do and how to do it. And I can safely say it, literally, none of our team came down with COVID those whole first 2 years. We got it later, but and in my family, we only had it once, thank goodness. We have people now 2-3 times have gone through. And so we've only had it once in our home. But during those early days, we kept people safe.
Yeah. Did it change the way you see your work in any way?
It made our work.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the early days, I was always about, let's go to them. But COVID forced us to think not just to the individual person, but to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so our entire way that we serve is now community-based, outside as much as possible, in spaces that people are familiar with, as opposed to come to a building, we come to you, and we come to your local park or church or wherever we can be. That has forced us to partner and collaborate with so many groups, from 7-Eleven to the local church. How do we get your people into a safe environment, an accessible environment? That was another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our buildings still aren't accessible. And on a bus line, so people can come that way. But it literally made the way that we now serve full time, and we're not going to change it back. We find that this really, really works.
Were there new partners who've remained, new ways of collaborating that have remained?
So the first thing that we did was that big Census 2020 program. And our goal was to have these block parties in a building. Gone. But we ended up doing car caravans throughout the city. That was us sneaking through the streets and having people come to their doors. And we're saying, we're going to leave some information. We're not coming up to you. We're just going to leave some information. So now, that census, we saw over 90 different partners, from Parks and Recs to the city, to the county, to individual neighborhood associations, churches, like we said, faith-based organizations. How do we get to your network of people safely? And so now, our partnership now ranges from Raleigh to of course, Charlotte, and then through the census all the way to DC. So our partnerships grew. Like I said, no one knew who we were in the beginning, but because of our response and our way of staying involved with the communities, we now get the calls to say, hey, we're coming to your community. We want to partner with you to reach as many people as possible.
Were your children school age at the time?
Well, both of my boys were. I have one, I call him blended son, who was school age at the time, that had to stay home and do the online. And I think that wasn't the hardest thing, but he's a sports-related person and everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the hardest on our youth, was that, where are they going? You know, I marvel at their energy. I don't have it anymore. But where were they going to get rid of some of that energy? I told somebody, imagine that every amusement park, every amusement place, every carnival, every festival is gone. How were we helping our children at that point? It was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was, let's go to the public park and play some basketball. But then we always were thinking, what about children who couldn't get to a place?
Yeah.
How are we helping them? And we saw a lot of programs grow out of that need to support our children during that time.
Like what?
Well, Greer Heights literally turned our community center into a school. They had an after-school program. It's connected to the park, so there was plenty of space for them to run and move and, just talk. But yeah, the whole building became a school, which is kind of ironic because it originally in 1927 was a school. And so for COVID, it became that again. And now those connections those children have to that building are stronger because of what they went through during COVID.
Did you see anything that you want to share in Greer Heights in terms of how the community responded?
I think we began to see more neighborhood advocates step up. So it wasn't so much, well, we're going to go to this organization or that organization. And I'm actually working with one of the neighborhood leaders that I saw just pop up. She began to have distributions right in her front yard. Because where she was, she knew, okay, I have our Latino families around the corner. They don't have to go anywhere, just come around. And we always have the PPE up there. But I saw more just ordinary residents stepping up and saying, I want to make a difference. And I can make a difference. And it wasn't that they had to go to school. They just took what they had. And I saw a lot of that. What do we have? I was saying, what do you have in your hand already? And let's see how we can grow that, partner it. So I saw a lot of that, and not just in Greer Heights, the Hoskins community, I saw that. Hidden Valley, I saw that. There was one particular church, they have a walking trail. They opened that up. Just come out and get some fresh air, walk that trail. They developed a community garden. I saw community gardens blossom where it used to be really almost county-led places were community gardens. Not everyone had a garden. And then we were sharing. Someone would say, I'm leaving a bushel out front, come by and take. It was, to be honest with me, it was a beautiful time of learning how to be community again.
Do you feel like that has persisted, or there are echoes of it that persist?
There are echoes of it. I think, we live in such a time where politics has divided us. And we live in a time where we're trying to figure out with all of the, economic changes and our housing market. So there's still a lot of fear. People are still grappling with, well, I had COVID and I was down for a month and now I'm behind on my, but I still feel that there are echoes of that. And we try our best. We're connected to over 20 communities here in Charlotte. And we try our best when we work with organizations like Crisis Assistance Ministry, take it out and share it in the community. And so we're still seeing where people are saying, hey, this group needs help, can you come out? Or that group needs help. But we're actually starting to get the call now. I was in Union County on Monday. I'll be in Gaston County later on this year. We've got rural spaces that are not as blessed as Charlotte. And we kind of need to share the wealth. We need to share the connections and share the support. Because I think there's some rural counties that are still suffering.
You talked about politics, and there were certainly politics and social movements and events that continued through the pandemic. Can you talk about how did those impact what you were doing? How did they impact you mentally?
It was difficult. I grew up in New York in we call it the melting pot. And it was difficult to start to see people divided on these political lines. It was difficult because that was also the time of the riots that started to come through here. And so, we would do our support as much as we can. I told people I wasn't on the front lines picketing or rioting, but I would drop some water and try to support those groups. It was just hard because we didn't know what this would snowball into. Out of there came our end day preppers and all those types of people who are worried about how our society is going to come across. So there was a lot of fear of chaos breaking out, or people using these as opportunities to create chaos. At that time, and I won't go into the particular person, but the politics was so polarized that, you found people who you were friends with some families pulling apart. It was a very hard time. All we could do is, we had this thing, we're going to come out here positive and we're going to stay positive. Because the people I support are already dealing with enough change and challenges and sometimes trauma that, we're going to try to minimize. We're not trying to escape, because you can't, but we're trying to minimize the effect that this has on a person who may be already dealing, like you said, with health changes, loss of jobs, loss of home. And so we create environments that are just all about support. But it was very difficult because I saw people separated along ethnic and racial lines. I saw people separated along political parties. And I'm like, do you understand that we're all in this together, that COVID doesn't care? I have a line that says disability don't care. It's not good English, but it doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter, if you're this political party, you're just as vulnerable as all of us. And so, but it was hard. It was hard.
Disability can often make the uncertainty of life more visible to you. Did you find that, and for many people, uncertainty was one of the key experiences and emotions that accompanied the pandemic? And I'm curious whether you feel that was harder to incorporate additional uncertainty for you and for others, or whether you felt like, well, we know how to do this. I mean, what did you see?
No, we were making it up. I call it, we became the pivot team. We were making it up as fast as we could, because literally things were changing.
Do you think that was more
week.
comfortable for you as a person who, and as a team that, was already more familiar with uncertainty?
I think we were. I think what we were when you deal with disability, you're already a person who's overcoming challenges. You're already a person who's thinking outside of the box. Like, how do I make this work in a world that may not be designed for me? How do I make my home accommodating? How do I, make sure I can get accessibility into my life? So we're already thinking outside of that box of what society is doing. And so it allowed us, I think, we had a special skill to say, well, how are we still going to reach the people? How are we going to keep them safe? How are we going to feed people? I tell you, one of the things we did a lot more was peer support. I was always on the phone. Again, you're in your house. You can't get out. Things are being delivered. When is this going to end? Oh, my children. I'm trying to take care of myself and my children. They're home all the time now. It was a constant, how do we solve this problem? But it did. What I loved was that we were nimble and open to adjusting in any way. And that has retained. People say, well, how do you do what you do? When someone calls us, we try to solve their problem, and we never know what's going to be on the other end of that phone. Will it be they need food, clothing? I'm homeless. I'm disabled and homeless. What are we doing? So my goal is to always make what is available. So we have a saying, it says, we don't reinvent the wheel, we just make sure it turns. How do we get what's already here to work specifically for this person's needs? We learned that in the pandemic because we were literally delivering food all the way to Salisbury. Pantries were running out. Shelves were empty. People were getting food, but it wasn't necessarily best for their medical needs. And they were trying to make do. I don't want to feel like I'm being, ungrateful. No, but you need what you need to eat. And so we were solving all these different problems any way that we could. And I think that was one of the biggest things that came out of it, was that we learned to be nimble. We learned to listen instead of saying, here's what we're going to give you. We learned to listen. We learned to tailor it. And then we supported people. Like even today, I'll be on the phone at some point saying, hey, checking in. How you doing? And that's something we were doing in the pandemic when everyone was at home. They just needed to hear a voice sometimes,
How did you, as a family, how did you care for each other, care for the boys who were home? What did you put in place for that?
I hate to say it, but I became militant. Hand sanitizer, cleaning. My husband at the same time was working still in CMS.
Mhm.
So when he came home, he had to take those clothes off. And we would wash the clothes, and there was a certain pattern. So I literally, not to say that I was a type A personality, but I was like, we cannot get sick here.
Mhm.
And so there were cleaning routines that we did. There were ways that we took care of the cars, wiping down the steering wheels, taking things with you when you went to the store. I still, to this day, carry little things of hand sanitizer everywhere I go. Sanitizing our phones. Every little bit of information I would get from the CDC or any meeting that I was in, it was incorporated in the house. I did wash down cans. I wiped down cans. We wiped down extra countertops and sprayed the lights fixtures. And it was all about what can we do? And we're going to have this heightened sense of not fear related, but this is the knowledge we have, put it into place.
Mhm.
And so that became a thing. And, children are like, well, why do we have to do all of this? But we want you to be safe.
For your son who was in school, was he in high school, middle school?
No, and we only get him on the weekends sometimes.
Okay.
So it wasn't like we had him all the time, but he was in middle school at the
He was
time.
in middle school at the time. So you only have it on, so then
Mhm.
you didn't have to be the one to watch him as he went to school.
Well, we did have to encourage because we knew that we knew mom was having some issues with, attention. It was very hard on our children to be there 6 to 8 hours staring at a screen, not connecting, interacting with friends. So there was actually, on our part, a lot of extra support
Mhm.
to say, are you okay? Do you need to, let's do a Zoom just with friends. And any help that you need, because it's very passive. We think that this is connecting, but over time it becomes very passive. I couldn't tell you how many meetings I've sat in and my picture's not on and I'm kind of multitasking and trying to just listen in. So for our children, imagine, there's distractions.
Mhm.
And it's hard to learn new concepts in that environment.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of, hey, pay attention. If you need to rest, speak up.
Mhm.
Advocate for what you need. That was one of the biggest things I remember talking about.
Can you share a story with me of
Sure.
a time when you felt supported by others in the pandemic?
My team.
Mhm.
My team has just really been an amazing set of people. They were willing to come with me. And we're talking about other people with disabilities. So at that time, 90% of our board are people with disabilities. 100% of the team were people with disabilities. They were willing to say, we're going to follow Judy into the flames of community engagement and trying to keep them safe. So the team has been there to do everything that we wanted to do, from the community engagement to we did a film, to just give space for people to talk about their feelings about the COVID pandemic. How are you feeling? How are you coping? We did that, and a lot of my team members, and we had some young adults from college, just talk. Let's give space to what's going on. My family was very supportive. My husband was very supportive. I think you're crazy, but this is what you're going to do. And you're passionate about, he's the one that drove me to drop food off in Salisbury. So it's my team. And then some of our funders out of Raleigh really got what we were doing. They said, you're still going out in the community and you're not stopping. And so we received a lot of support, not only just with funds, but with any information. We had some of them that would drop off supplies for our events, food, different things, just to say, look, you're out here and we need you to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very, very much like people got after a while what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what has come out of that is we are now very well supported by our city, by our county. And that grew out of what we were doing in the pandemic. So I tell you the truth.
That's a gift.
That's a beautiful gift. because they saw us keep going. We did about 18 months of vaccine awareness. And we went everywhere we possibly could, from the 7-Eleven parking lot to, a big church off of, off of Sugar Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever we could go, we did it. And then we were online doing lives and talking. And people said, wow, they're just, someone else walked up to me the other day and says, I just want half of your energy. But, you have a passion. And then you say, I'm going to help people that most people are not going to go help.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do it in a way that keeps them healthy and alive and safe. And I think that message resonated with so many people.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, the support is now just blown up.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it was the team of 5 people who said, where are we going this weekend? What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And keeping them safe. I could tell you so many different stories of when we were in a parking lot with StarMed, them doing the vaccines and the tests. And one of the biggest events I was part of, I'm trying to remember the year, it was called Feed 5,000, which we actually did. And we did it safely near the new Ophelia Garman Brown building. We had a line of people come through and get food boxes for that Thanksgiving. We safely fed people in the building. They were tested before they went in. We fed people morning, noon, and night. And then we had other organizations pick up meals and fan out into the community. Mm. And so we actually reached 5,000 people that day.
Wow. Through
pickup meals, delivered meals, and meals served right on the premises, and not a single case of COVID. Absolutely amazing. The team of people that came together, not just my team, but so many other organizations. And it taught us that we're not really worried about the next pandemic. We've learned a lot. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of ready to say, big and small work together to save as many lives as possible.
That's an incredible thing to say. Are there some other stories you want to be sure and share that we haven't touched on?
I told you about that, the 5,000, I almost forgot about that, but just individual stories of, I always remember the families when they see how much food, I'm a big food person. I believe food breaks down barriers. We actually have a program called Foodie for Access. You come and get food, you also get information. And then we're supportive. We have even a prayer room if you need prayer. Everything Foodie for Access. So when I deliver food, it's not just a tiny little box, it's fresh food. And the amount of tears that would come out of people. I will tell you one funny story. So before the pandemic, we used to do something called Agape Pantry. And it was all about hygiene. Anything you couldn't buy with food stamps, mm-hmm. we wanted to make sure we could supply you. So, of course, we had to shut it down during the pandemic. But I had worked with an extreme couponer in order to buy the products. Well, guess what we had at the beginning of the pandemic? 600 rolls of toilet paper. And everywhere I went, I would drop off and they would say, okay, food, toilet paper. They were so happy, even if you just brought them 4 rolls. And I literally said, everywhere we go, take a bag of toilet paper for people. And people were so happy. And I remember saying it before the pandemic, what in the world are we going to do? No one would ever take it. It was sitting there, stacks. After that, we just literally took it everywhere we went. So it's funny how life can change that quickly. And something you think you take for granted is now essential. Remember that word? Yeah. Essential. But yeah, that's another funny story that came out.
The words of the year, essential. And unprecedented.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's the truth. I want to make sure I don't miss anything because
we've covered a lot.
We have covered a lot, and you've shared so much, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
glad your family stayed safe through the pandemic.
Yes.
I'm really very grateful for that and for the work you've done. So thank you very, very much for sharing.
Thank you, Debbie. This was wonderful.
This was terrific.